Today we're doing a new weapon class, All Bosses Speedrun, this time featuring Ultra Greatswords. Let's do this. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you might already be familiar with the weapon class speedrun series we've started for Dark Souls 1. And if that's the case, welcome back. But if you're new here, I'll explain. Earlier this year, I tried out a new video format where I routed and created a segmented All Bosses speedrun using a bow as my primary damage source, with some commentary accompanying the gameplay to explain what was going on. I have a history of doing live speedruns with commentary for games done quick, so it was a pretty natural format for me. After the success of that video, I decided we would turn this initial idea into an entire series of weapon class speedruns to see which one would come out on top or end up on the bottom. And today's weapon class of choice, as voted on by my patrons, is going to be Ultra Greatswords. I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the weapon classes I've been looking forward to the most. As you may know, I love staggering enemies and dealing massive damage, and I think this route that I've cooked up will satisfy those urges. I also have a sneaking suspicion that this run will be one of the faster runs we've done so far in the series. And if you're curious about how fast the previous runs have been, here's what the leaderboard looks like so far. Yes, that is Miracles in the top spot. That run was insane. Now, let's establish some rules that all of these weapon class runs will follow. 1. No glitches. A lot of the runs I do on this channel heavily incorporate glitches for the purpose of speed or to pull off something otherwise impossible. But these weapon class speedruns will be entirely glitchless. Since these are intended to be speedruns that show off the speed of the weapon class itself, a glitchless run seems to be the most fair way to properly assess all of them against each other. As for the definition of what is glitchless, we will be using the speedrun.com rule set for Dark Souls 1 glitchless speedruns. Now, this rule set does allow for some skips and techniques that might look a little sus, so you can alternatively think of it as no major glitches. 2. Use the weapon. The large majority of all the damage being dealt in the run needs to come from the weapon class itself, but not all of it, as these are not X-only challenge runs. So there will be a few instances where I use damage from other sources in the name of speed or viability. But these instances will be infrequent, as the spirit of the run must remain intact by using the weapon class in question for 99% of all damage. And 3, defeat every boss. There are 26 total bosses in Dark Souls 1, and in these runs, we will be taking out every single one of them. Now, before we smash every single boss in Dark Souls, I'm going to ask you to smash the like and subscribe buttons underneath this video if you're interested in more content like this, as we are very close to that 20,000 subscriber milestone. Also, if you're interested in supporting the channel even further, I do have a Patreon where members get early access to videos, a vote towards each weapon class speedrun, and of course, their name in the credits of every video. Alright, let's get into the run. Unfortunately, none of the character classes start with an Ultra Greatsword. Wouldn't that be awesome? So we're just choosing the most optimal starting character class we can and rolling with it. We had a similar issue on the previous weapon class speedrun where we couldn't start with any offensive miracles, but at least we could pick Cleric, which was on theme, even if we had to defeat Asylum Demon with the mace. This run, we don't really have anything on theme, so we're just going to pick Hunter for the high strength and dex, as well as the free bow. We could, of course, skip the boss and come back later, but this is a glitchless run, so that isn't happening. Sorry, guys. And of course, we gotta take the master key, as it's gonna save us some time for sure on opening a couple of key doors throughout the run. Alright, let's confirm our character and get things started. As every run, we start in the Undead Asylum. Maybe one day in the far future, Dark Souls runs will somehow start somewhere else, but for now, they all start here. And the first goal we have for the run is to escape the Asylum so we can reach the more open-ended part of the game where we can make more interesting routing decisions. In order to escape, we have to take out the boss Asylum Demon to get the Big Pilgrim's key to leave. But since we don't have any black fire bombs, we're not going to be able to take him out quickly on the first encounter, so we'll run through the gate to do the lap around the Asylum, acquiring our gear. We'll grab our shield, the short sword, the Estus flask, and the upstairs key from Oscar, unlock the door, and acquire our bow before going through the fog wall to begin the fight with the boss. A well-placed two-handed jump attack will make a huge dent in Asylum Demon's health bar with a little bit of extra damage from the lingering hitbox on the jump attack. Then we can just do some two-handed R1s while strafing an attack, finishing with an R2 for a really nice and optimal kill. With the first boss down, we can escape the Asylum and enter the next phase of the run, where we'll be focusing on getting to the Undead Parish bonfire to act as our early game hub. And we're going to route out a path there in a way that allows us to most optimally acquire the gear and souls we need, while taking out Taurus Demon and Undead Berg so we don't have to come back for him later. But before we head into Berg, we're going to make a quick detour to the graveyard, grabbing the homeward bones in this chest on the way, then picking up the first Ultra Greatsword of the run that will be using the Zweihander, and boning back to hold on to the few precious souls we have. Next, we'll make our way to Undead Berg, where we can actually just completely skip the merchant here. He's not selling anything we need anyways. We'll grab the gold pine resin in this chest, jump past the barrel, and then, since we don't have the levels to wield our Zweihander yet, we'll buff our short sword with resin to take out the lizard in this barrel for some twinkling titanite before entering the Taurus Demon fog wall. Since this is an Ultra Greatsword speedrun, we don't want to use the short sword on another boss if we can avoid it, so we're going to use an alternative and faster strategy. Using a sequence of action-cued animations, we can get Taurus Demon to jump at us at just the right time to send him flying off to his death using gravity. Next up is the Hellkite Bridge, where we can escape the initial fire by running into the safety spot, then aggro him down with our bow, and simply run past to the Sunlight Altar bonfire. Now is the perfect time to level up our strength so we can begin using the Zweihander, which we will immediately use on the Black Knight up in this tower to acquire our second major weapon, the Black Knight Greatsword. The +0 Zweihander is still a little underpowered, so we need 2 crits and a couple R1s to take out the Black Knight, but we are rewarded with a lucky BKGS drop. We're not going to be using this just yet, as we don't have the stats to wield it, but we'll get there. After running past some more enemies, we finally arrive at the Undead Parish bonfire next to Andre, scratching off our current goal. We'll make sure to rest so this becomes our new last bonfire location, as we'll be warping back to this multiple times over the next several segments. Heading downstairs, we'll buy a weaponsmith box from Andre and then continue into Darkroot. Our next major goal is going to be ringing the 2 bells of awakening in order to access Sin's fortress, but before we head in the direction of the first bell, we want to take this path on the way to Valley of Drakes to grab a couple of things we're going to really want. Now, I know we could have gone through Valley of Drakes at the beginning, but trust me, this pathing is faster overall for this route. We really want to take out this lizard here for another set of twinkling, then continue downwards to pick up the Grasscrest shield, and we want some extra souls, so we'll do this quit out strat to get the Black Knight Halberd guy here to run off the cliff for us. Now we can simply ride the elevator down, run past some lightning drakes, and climb the ladder to pick up one of the most broken items in the game, the red tier stone ring. Okay, let's bone back. Alright, we're actually gonna ring some bells now, which means gargoyles are next up. Setting up red tier stone ring for this fight isn't totally necessary, but it does save a little bit of time overall, so we'll use this guy to lower our health into range, then do our best to safely navigate our way through the hollows and Baldur Knights on the way to the gargoyle arena. We still don't have a lot of stats, so we'll be using the unupgraded Zweihander for this fight, and since our endurance is low, we'll also be mid-rolling, but it's not a big deal. With a resin buff, RTSR, and a big fat Ultra Greatsword, our damage and stagger potential will be plenty good enough as we take out the first gargoyle in only 3 attacks. The second one goes down in 2 attacks, and the fight is already over. Easy. Now we can climb up, ring the first bell, and bone out of here. We're finally working with some extra souls here, and thanks to our starting class, we can already get 22 strength and 18 dexterity, which is just enough to wield our Black Knight Greatsword while two-handing. Now we're off to Blighttown to ring the second bell of awakening, taking the elevator shortcut in the church down the Firelink shrine, and then kicking off Lautrec for a helpful ring, and so he won't break our bonfire in Firelink. We'll open the door to Valley of Drakes with our master key, run past some enemies, and then do some cool parkour down to the water wheel and drop ourselves into the swamp. This fall damage plus the poison tick from the swamp will help us set up our HP into Red Tearstone Ring range for the next boss fight, Quelaag. Even though our BKGS is unupgraded, the weapon does pretty decent damage in its base form, so combined with the enormous boost in damage from Red Tearstone Ring, we're actually going to be doing pretty chunky damage on Quelaag's health bar. She's kind of tanky for a boss this early, so taking her out in so few hits is really not that bad for an upgraded weapon like this, but of course we're just scratching the surface of the kind of damage that we'll be doing later on. Once she's down, we'll ring the second bell and bone out, taking off another goal in our routing. We're going to respawn back in Undead Parish as we finally begin our climb upwards towards Anor Londo for our next major goal in the run, acquiring the Lord Vessel. But before we can enter Anor Londo, we have Sin's Fortress and Iron Golem in our way. For this route, there isn't anything to do here other than run through as quick as we can while avoiding the many traps and enemies that try to slow us down. This place may have been a pain to you on your casual playthroughs, but as a speedrunner, it's not that hard as long as you know what you're doing. So we easily make it to the rooftop where we can continue on our way towards the fog wall for the boss, where we're going to perform a special quick kill strat. This fight, we'll be using two particular attacks to deal 400 damage to stagger the boss in just the right positioning. Then a single R2 from our BKGS will deal the additional 200 damage required to knock him off the platform and open the way up to our next destination, Anor Londo. We want the Anor Londo bonfire in order to warp to it later, but we're going to do something different to acquire it a little faster, so we'll skip it for now and go straight to the elevator. We'll do some parkour, run across the rafters, and turn the rotating staircase twice so we can drop down and take the Dark Moon Tomb bonfire we'll need for later. This is a perfect spot to finally upgrade our BKGS to +3 and level up. Now we'll head back up, turn the staircase again, and quit out as we reach stable ground to send the elevator back down for later. Then it's just a simple sprint through the second half of Anor Londo, dodging all the enemies and projectiles coming at us on our way to the next boss. We're gonna want to set up our health for the Red Tearstone Ring before this next fight, so we'll intentionally get hit by the Silver Knight and then combine it with some fall damage on our way to entering the fog wall for ONS. Our BKGS isn't fully maxed out yet, but we're still going to be doing some pretty good damage here at +3 with Red Tearstone Ring, as you can see here. That's Ornstein going down in just 3 attacks. The second phase of this fight is kind of a freebie, as we have a weapon that can stagger Super Smo in a single running attack. This is one of the most busted things about Ultra Greatswords, as they have these fairly quick hitting running attacks that also do massive poise damage for a single hit stagger. Even with the lengthy recovery frames, I can still basically just stunlock Smo here all the way. And that's ONS down, making Guinevere accessible, who will shoot to shut her up and finish our current goal of acquiring the Lord Vessel. Then we'll literally just fall to the ground to death warp ourselves in Dark Anor Londo, which has the side effect of giving us the Anor Londo bonfire for free. Warping to Undead Parish will begin the next phase of the run, upgrading our BKGS to +5 and unlocking the Artorias of the Abyss DLC. We're going to want the Crest of Artorias from Andre, but we don't have any souls, so we'll just take him out to get it dropped into our inventory for free. We definitely want this key item so we can open the door in Darkroot nearby, giving us quick access to several locations from the hidden bonfire ahead that we'll be using as our home base for a while. During this rest animation is a good time to warp to Firelink and place the Lord Vessel to unlock all the golden fog gates in the game. But we'll dark sign back so we don't lose the bonfire and save a bone. As of now, we are on our way to taking out the Hydra in the lake, so we'll intentionally take some damage to set us up for RTSR. We basically have two different goals converging together right now as we're trying to get our BKGS to +5, but the best way to do this is to take out some crystal lizards in the crystal caves, which also means we want to go ahead and set ourselves up to access the DLC simultaneously, which is why we're doing Hydra right now. We only need a little more fall damage to finish our RTSR setup, and then we'll slide down the ladder to meet Hydra in the lake. This RTSR setup was really low, so I can't block with my Grasscrest shield at all, since it doesn't quite block 100% physical, but if you position yourself well, no shield is necessary, and we can begin chopping off heads with some heavy attacks. The damage from the +3 BKGS and RTSR is so high that we won't even need to cut off all the heads of the Hydra to defeat it. Just 3 are enough to deplete its entire health bar. Now we can go to the back of the lake, reload to spawn in the Golden Golem carrying Dusk, rescue her, and then spawning back at the hidden bonfire, we'll warp to Anor Londo on our way to take out Seath. Not only will we be targeting Seath on this segment, we also want to take out some other key enemies for their drops. The first of which is exactly why we just rescued Dusk. In order to access the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, we need to acquire the broken pendant that a blue crystal golem ahead will drop upon defeat. But it will only drop the item if Dusk has been rescued. We don't want to have to come back here again, so yeah, taking out Hydra beforehand was a must. In a lot of routes, taking out this enemy can be a huge pain because of all the crystal hollows surrounding him, but it's not too bad in this route as we just need a couple of BKGS swings to take him out and we'll get the broken pendant for our troubles. Continuing further into the archives, we'll do maybe the most famous glitchless skip in the game, Duke Skip, to skip the entire prison section of this area, saving us about 3 minutes. From here, we can keep running past enemies, do some more parkour as we take some fall damage to set up our health, enter the crystal caves, and then do some more drops to finish our RTSR setup. Then we'll come to this trio of crystal lizards on the way to Seath. We can't hit them all with a single attack from our Greatsword, but we can hit 2 of them and stun the third with the Wind Box and clean them up without having to quit out to reload the lizard. That's 6 twinkling real quick, just enough to max out our weapon. We'll continue towards Seath while doing some particular pathing to avoid getting any clams into the fight with us. This is a pretty simple fight, as we break Seath's prized possession with a cheap arrow, and then swing him down with our Greatsword before he can really do anything threatening at all. And then Homeward Bone back to Darkroot as he dies. We'll use this twinkling to finally upgrade to +5, then level up and piggyback this rest animation into a warp to Darkmoon Tomb to take out Gwendolyn. And now we can say that we have finished our goal of unlocking the DLC and upgrading our weapon to maximum. But before we enter the DLC, we want to do a little bit of Darkroot boss cleanup, starting with Gwendolyn. We could do this later, but it saves a small bit of time to warp here now since we were already resting at the bonfire, and our damage won't increase enough to warrant waiting any further on this boss. This is a simple one where we'll use one of Gwendolyn's attacks to set up our HP for Red Tearstone Ring, and then time our approach with the arrow attack to get a stagger, and then finish off the boss with a couple more swings. Dark siding away to save on homeward bones. Next, we'll make our way towards Moonlight Butterfly and perform a bit of an unusual strategy for this boss fight. Standing in a particular spot, I wait for a visual cue from Butterfly to backstep into a rolling attack to hit the wing hitbox with the Greatsword. This doesn't deal a massive amount of damage, but it does deal enough to actually make Butterfly land several seconds faster than it normally would if I had not damaged it at all. It also saves an extra hit for when the boss finally does land, and then after taking it out, we'll switch back to using homeward bones to spawn back at the hidden bonfire. There's one more boss to clean up in Darkroot before entering the DLC, and it's Seath. We'll use this NPC to set up our health one more time, grab the stone armor on the way that we'll use for later, finish setting up our HP for RTSR, and enter Seath's arena. We'll then grab the Hornet Ring and start the fight. Here you can get a better sense of how strong we are now that our weapon is upgraded to maximum, with big chunky damage on the boss. However, this is maybe the worst fight I had for this entire run, as Seath jumped around and did some backflips to waste our time. I didn't grind this one out enough to get a perfect fight, so it definitely could have been a little faster. Our Darkroot cleanup is finished, which means it's finally time for us to take on the 4 Artorias of the Abyss DLC bosses: Sanctuary Guardian, Artorias, Manus, and Calamite. And of course, the first one up is Sanctuary Guardian. There's not much to do on our way to the DLC portal, other than setting up our HP for a red Tearstone Ring activation. The DLC bosses can be very RNG heavy, and Guardian is certainly no exception, but we end up getting one of the best possible openings here with Guardian's Wind Attack, where we can land a blow before it staggers us, then follow up with a staggering attack, and then finish off the boss for a super quick kill. Now, that is why I love Ultra Greatswords. The staggers and damage are huge. Exiting the Guardian arena, we'll stop by Elizabeth the Mushroom to purchase Hidden Body and a Catalyst to cast it, which will help us get through some of the upcoming areas a little faster and a little more consistently. But we'll wait until later to attune it, however, as we make our way through the Royal Wood while carrying this RTSR setup all the way to Artorias for another DLC boss fight. Exiting the fog wall, we'll wait for Artorias to begin moving, then sprint left to get closer to the exit, strafing his opening attack for a nice punish and a stagger if he lets us, which he does. In this fight, I dodge his next attack for a risky punish, but I get away with it as he rolls away to buff. 2 attacks break him out, and a third finishes him off for another really good DLC boss fight. Now's a good time to take all the souls we have on us and get a bunch of levels, as well as attune Hidden Body, then go and activate Calamite. And on the way, we'll make a pit stop at Chester to buy a few items we'll need for the rest of the run, like bombs, blossoms, bones, and a Lloyd's Talisman for the Crest Key Mimic. We'll run through this valley past the dogs and wait until we see Calamite flying past the mountains in the distance to then warp back to Township and continue our way deeper into the DLC. Here's where Hidden Body really comes in handy, as we can get through this next stretch of enemies on the way through Ulasil Township without them slowing us down at all as we approach the Mimic ahead that contains the Crest Key. This is why we bought the Talisman from Chester, as it's just faster to get the key this way instead of killing the Mimic. We'll continue on our way to the next boss, casting Hidden Body again to help us cross this grouping of enemies called Hell Bridge to access the Chasm of the Abyss below. Once we're here, we can use our final cast of Hidden Body to get through here easily while taking a few drops to set up our HP for the next boss, Manus. This guy is my absolute favorite boss in the whole game, so I'm actually just gonna shut up and let you enjoy the fight. And there's another really fast DLC fight. Only one more left to go. Spawning back in at Ulasil Township, we want to take on Calamite, but we still need to have Goff shoot down the dragon for us to access the fight as intended. So we'll go upstairs around Artorias' arena, use the crest key on the door to Goff's tower, and ask the giant very nicely to shoot down the boss for us. After warping back, we'll make a beeline for the valley that leads to Calamite, avoiding these dogs on the way. Then finish off our RTSR setup with this long drop into the arena. This is yet another very RNG intense boss fight, and we start off with a bad attack but get a decent opening afterwards. Luckily our damage is good, so any opportunities for attacks means we'll get a big chunk out of his health bar. So far though, this is definitely not the best Calamite RNG you can get, but it's also far from the worst, as we get a string of opportunities at the end here to finish him off before he loses us any more time. And with that, the DLC is done. As we sit to warp away, we'll take this opportunity to level up some more stats and then head back to Firelink Shrine. We'll rest here at Firelink to make this our hub for the next major portion of the run, cleaning up what bosses remain, starting with the ones located in areas branching from Firelink. We'll be taking on Stray Demon first as we make our way back to the Asylum and pretend to be an egg in the crow's nest. After the warp on stand-up, we'll remove the Dusk Ring to have our HP, and then avoid these annoying torch hollows with the aid of Hidden Body. Dropping into Stray's arena, we'll finish off our RTSR setup and we can immediately unload damage onto this guy. He might have a lot of HP, but we're doing a ton of damage. Not to mention the hidden property of the BKGS that deals extra damage to demons. Once he's down, we'll climb the ladder to escape and run down this hallway to grab the Peculiar Doll and Bone Out, narrowly avoiding the Black Knight. Next up, we're going to cover some familiar territory by heading back into Undead Burg, on our way to Capra Demon and then Gaping Dragon. This is definitely one of the advantages of this Twinkling Titanite route, as another weapon class that relies on the Large Ember would have to come here much earlier in the run, and it's a lot comfier to get through here with some more damage and HP, along with Hidden Body, which we'll cast before executing the lower Burg skip down to this hallway full of thieves and dogs. Capra is a cinch, with a running attack to stagger and then one more attack to finish him off, quitting out to get all the pursuing enemies off our tail. We'll use the key from Capra to enter the depths and intentionally take some damage to set up our health for RTSR, jumping down for the fastest path to Gaping. Down this slide and all the way to the Vog Wall. We'll cross our fingers for Gaping to do his head slam attack, and then just barely do enough damage to finish him off before he takes us out with his charge attack for a really quick kill. Spawning back in at Firelink, it's time to enter the catacombs for Pinwheel and Nito. We'll make our way down and push this lever, quitting out to de-aggro the skeletons and skip the animation. Casting Hidden Body will make our way through the catacombs really quick with some drops and combine this with a ring swap to set up our health for Pinwheel. The drop into his arena will finish off our RTSR setup, and we can take out the boss in 2 simple attacks. This next area is one of my favorites to run through in a speedrun, as the pathing is always really fun to execute. So I always make sure to include this entire section in these videos. All of this fall damage on the way is also going to be helpful for us to have a high RTSR setup for Nito coming up. We definitely want the buff from RTSR in this next fight, but we're going to have the smaller skeletons attacking us, so a little bit of extra health to tank an attack or two helps quite a bit. And we'll also equip the stone armor to reduce the incoming damage and avoid getting staggered. With a little bit of luck, we're able to take out Nito super quick before the skeletons can overwhelm us, and then bone back to Firelink once again as he dies. It's finally time to take on 4 kings, as we make our way down the Firelink elevator to New Londo ruins, running past the wooden walkways and rooms full of ghosts to arrive at Ingward. Now, a normal person would climb the ladder to get the key to the seal from this guy, but we're speedrunners, so we're just gonna throw bombs at him from down here until he dies, as the key will magically pop right into our inventory, and then we can make our way over to turn the seal, finally breaking our FAP ring as we ring swap to have our HP and then equip the Covenant of Artorias. The next drop on the way to the fog wall will finish off our RTSR setup, and we can drop down into the darkness to activate the fight. I'll make sure to drop an item at a certain general location so I know where the second king will spawn, and here is where being able to one-hand our BKGS will come in handy, as we're trying to do a certain amount of damage to get the king really close to death, and a one-handed running attack gives us just the right amount of damage for 2 follow-up R1s to put the king at a very low health. We'll regenerate our stamina to full and then land the killing blow on the king and continue swinging with R1s to apply overkill damage to the dying king on the overall boss health bar. As you can see, the overall boss health bar is already at half, and if we can do the same thing on the next king, we'll be able to finish the fight with only 2 instead of the 4 as advertised. Once again, a one-handed running attack into 2 regular R1s will put the king very low, and once our stamina is regenerated to full, the next opportunity will land the killing blow and then drain our stamina with additional R1s to finish off the boss fight. That's 2 kings. Okay, so the Firelink cleanup portion of the run is done, and we can cross that off, but we still have 6 bosses left, and the next 4 will make up the Izalith cleanup portion of the run as we make our way back down the Firelink elevator one last time into Blighttown and descend for a second time to the swamp. We would have loved to grab the Daughter of Chaos bonfire earlier in the run to avoid having to make this trip a second time, but since we didn't have the Lord Vessel, we couldn't rest at the bonfire to make it warpable without having to climb out of Blighttown, which would have been much slower than making this second trip through. We'll roll through the swamp, back through Quelaag's domain, and exit into the demon ruins to grab the bonfire and do our last level up of the run for 40 endurance. And then a ring swap plus the fall damage from this slope will put us in RTSR range for Ceaseless Discharge. Using our bow, we'll aggro the boss from a distance and then dodge his opening attack, unloading as much damage as we can. Unfortunately, we're just short of being able to one-cycle the boss, needing only one more attack on the second cycle to finish him off. Spawning back at the Demon Ruins bonfire, we'll make our way to Fire Sage, using the Dust Crown Ring and some fall damage on the way to control our HP to set up Red Tearstone Ring. Dodge the enemies on the way, and then enter the Fog Wall for another boss encounter. This is a pretty similar fight to Stray Demon, as they have basically the same moveset, and our weapon does an insane amount of damage on the boss thanks to the bonus damage to demons on the Black Knight Greatsword. That's another boss down, and we'll heal up afterwards, as we're going to want to use the environment in the next boss arena to set up our HP. That next boss is, of course, Centipede Demon. With a melee weapon, we want to get to the middle platform of the arena in order to engage him quickly, and the lava ticks on the way will put us into Red Tearstone Ring range. We want to bait out this opening attack, and if we stand just underneath, he'll stagger us, but it only does a small bit of damage, and we can just unload damage on him before he can really do anything for a quick boss fight. We'll heal up and then equip the orange charred ring in order to traverse the lava in the next area, Lost Izalith. This is another part of the run that can be annoying to run through if you don't know the right way to path around these dragon butts. So I always like to include my entire pathing through this area for anyone that wants to copy it. If you take this line, more or less, they won't really do anything to you, and this area is very simple to get through. Next up is the infamous Bed of Chaos, but we're going to do one of the best strats in all of Dark Souls in order to make this boss trivial. With some bombs and a good aim lineup, we'll come off this slide and run to a particular spot in the middle of the arena, right in front of the branchy tunnel, and throw a well-placed bomb on our right to take out the first orb. Then a second bomb to the left will take out the other orb and immediately open up the tunnel ahead of us to the boss. I actually forgot to equip my Greatsword to finish off the boss here, so forgive me for that, but it doesn't appreciably change the fight. Feel free to roast me in the comments section for this one though. And with that, the Izalith cleanup phase of the run is over. But we still haven't made our way to the Painted World, as we got the doll kind of late in this route. So we'll warp to Darkmoon Tomb and make our way. Much earlier in the run, we made sure to quit out to send this elevator back down, so we don't have to call it back, and we can just run straight to the painting room on our way to the entrance. We want to set up Red Tearstone Ring for the boss, so we'll be using a particular setup with our Calamity Ring from Calamity, making our way past all of the enemies in this section. It might seem a little sketchy running through here with the Calamity Ring on, but it's really not that bad if you know how the enemies behave. Once we're past the bloatheads in this room, we'll equip the Dust Crown Ring to halve our HP, and then perform the Painted World skip at the bridge here, which I promise you is allowed for glitchless speedruns. A hidden body cast will help us get past these archers safely, but we'll make sure to take one arrow intentionally for our RTSR setup, and then enter the fight with Priscilla. Aggroing her from this specific spot in the arena is a neat trick that skips her going invisible, so we can immediately just begin attacking her without having to play the footprints in the snow minigame usually associated with her, and she'll go down very quickly with this amount of damage. Exiting the painting, we'll warp away to spawn at the Anor Londo bonfire, and then warp to Firelink Shrine to approach the final boss of the run, Jumping back down Framp's pit into Firelink altar, we'll rest at the Lord Vessel and then place all the Lord Souls to open the kiln of the First Flame to approach the final boss of the run, and it's already looking like we're probably going to set a new fastest time for our weapon class speedrun series. We'll bait out a running attack from this Black Knight, which will put us in a perfect RTSR range thanks to the 16 vitality we leveled earlier in the run. This, combined with the Hornet Ring that we equipped on the previous warp, should do pretty quick work of Gwyn. And as we run through the final area, I just want to say thank you for watching the run. I hope you either learned something new or were at least entertained. These videos take a lot of time and effort to put together, so I appreciate you watching and supporting the channel so I can keep making content like this. And don't forget, if you want to participate in the vote for my next weapon class speedrun, you can support the channel even more by becoming a Patreon member. Finally, the run comes to a close as we interact with Gwyn's Fog Wall, running up and parrying his initial attack for a two-handed critical. Then we finish him off by blocking his fast attack and parrying the follow-up, ending the run with another two-handed critical attack. Exiting the arena and skipping the final cutscene, we arrive with our final time of 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 56 seconds. That's an entire 3 minutes and 22 seconds faster than the previous fastest run of this series, Miracles. I think by the end of this series, this time is probably going to be one of the fastest overall, but I'm not totally sure if it will reign supreme once everything is said and done. I guess we'll just have to see. But that's going to be all for today's video. I'll see y'all next time, and thank you so much for watching.